Hello, everyone. Welcome to this radcast that we are doing today with Doctress Newtopia. Doctress Newtopia, how you doing today?
I'm well. It's been a very interesting day.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I'll give you an opportunity to tell us a little about yourself in a moment. But first, I just want to give our audience a heads up that we're going to be talking about the problem, as best summarized by Professor Guy McPherson. And we'll only talk a little bit about that just to kind of get grounded in the same common reality. And then we're going to spend most of our time talking about solutions. And we'll start off by reading a 3-page document that Doctress Newtopia wrote up with a lot of her thoughts about that. And we'll just kind of use that as a starting point and then just go from there into the fascinating realm of solutions. How does that sound, Doctress?
I love it. Yes, please.
Okay, wonderful. So let's start off by giving you, Doctress, an opportunity to tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and then from there we'll talk a bit about the problem, the guy, that Guy McPherson summarizes so well, and we'll go from there. So,
well, my name Newtopia, I created it myself. It comes from John Lennon and Yoko Ono on their Mind Games album. And during the 1960s and 70s, what was in the air was creating a utopian society. So I was a young girl at that point, and my mother would take me to the hippie part of town in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I said, well, what do these people want? The hippies were on the lawn, smoking pot, listening to their music. And my mother said, well, they want utopia. And I said, well, where is it? And she said, I don't know. So that's began my quest on where is utopia? How do we create it? So my name is a reflection of that era and where we have to go in the present moment. We're all searching for that new model of how to leap us forward to become a new type of civilization. And from there, I went to graduate school at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. And I was able to get into a program, University Without Walls, where I could create my own curriculum. So I studied art and utopia. Finally, to study the work of Paulo Soleri and the arcology model. So that has led me to living in Arizona. So that's where I am presently, Tucson, Arizona.
Wow, which also coincidentally is where Guy McPherson was a professor, active professor for many years, and is now Professor Emeritus, University of Arizona, Tucson. So, and that's a good segue to, and that was a great introduction. Wow, I hadn't heard that before. So, thank you. That's really inspiring. And that's a great segue into kind of the getting grounded in the reality of our present moment, which I mentioned. Guy McPherson summarizes so well. And the bottom line is there are so many dozens of self-reinforcing feedback loops that are all accelerating climate change. And we've smashed through so many tipping points, so many of those barriers that the scientists warned us, we cannot cross this threshold of, whether it's parts per million of CO2 or temperature or whatever. Well, we've smashed through them all, and we're on this serious death spiral right now, which is heartbreaking. And I was just on a radio talk show today here in Seattle at Cairo Radio 97.3, and the conservative host was, saying all the predictable stuff that the climate change deniers say, and just simply, he wouldn't accept anything about human extinction. He wouldn't even accept that we're staring down the barrel of an ice-free Arctic. I mean, the fact that that hasn't even penetrated the global consciousness is amazing. But the bottom line is we are in an insane death spiral where we may have months to act before things really spiral out of control in terms of the collapse of modern agriculture, our ability to grow grains at the scale that we need, water shortages, food shortages, collapse of civilization, etc. And of course, once those things kick in, we're in a whole new realm where this kind of co-creation of solutions that we're doing right now is, if not impossible, severely impaired. And so let's seize the moment. Let's use the connectivity that we have while we have it. Let's leverage those aspects of civilization while we have them. And that's why we're taking this on with great urgency. On to you, Doctress.
Well, I think that's so true. It's, as Buckminster Fuller said, it's a race between oblivion and utopia, which is another reason that I started studying. Well, where is utopia? What is it? What kind of governance structure does it have? You know, what kind of technology will allow us to be a global utopian civilization? So, I mean, this is how we get out of the oblivion, is to have a basis of social justice and design a system from that perspective, a new organizing principle. And that is based on love and on justice, and the way I'm thinking.
And I'm getting that encompasses love and justice for Mother Earth, for our planet, as well as for humanity.
Yes, you know, it's all beings. I mean, because we're just not talking about the human race going extinct. We're talking about eukaryotic life forms, the nucleated cell, which is endangered, and all of the ecosystems that created these cells. You know, we could end up like Mars or Venus, with you know, an atmosphere that does not serve life. We're destroying our life support system. So that's about as serious as you can get for a species, to destroy its habitat.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what we're in the midst of. So that's, I just kind of wanted to talk briefly about that, and we have. Unless you have more, and we can always come back to it, but I just wanted to provide a foundation for what we're going to look at next. And so now let's shift gears and take a look at the document that Doctress Newtopia wrote. I'm going to do a screen share here in a moment. Okay. So going on screen share, and while I'm on screen share, Doctors, I actually won't be able to see you. So please just jump in, interrupt at any time. It's not an interruption because I'm inviting you to. So let's see, here is the document that you wrote. It starts, Dear Dr. McPherson, over the years, I've watched a number of your video presentations on abrupt climate change. I would like to refer you to your recent video made in Missouri in May 2017, in which you mention an unnamed Microsoft manager who is soliciting new ideas for alleviating this crisis by smart adaptation to the new climate reality. I assume you're referring to me there.
Yes.
Okay, great. Your critique of the situation facing us is very thorough. However, in my opinion, your solution lacks vision. When the video reaches 1 hour 43 minutes, and I paraphrase here, you say that one should pursue excellence, choose right options, remain calm, and seek what one loves. In other contexts, you have promoted individualistic solutions like social anarchy and living simply on Earth. More recently, you have pointed to the danger of nuclear meltdown that could result from interference with our electrical power grid. You seem to see the larger picture so well, but not the larger solution. Let me introduce myself to you. I have a doctorate in future studies from the School of Education at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. My dissertation deconstructed the foundational archetypes of architecture in order to understand its crucial role in perpetuating our dysfunctional civilization. I also taught an introductory course in the 90s in which I focused on architecture and climate change. I was the last futurist to graduate with a degree from this innovative program because during the Reagan administration, budget cuts eliminated progressive and thoughtful programs such as future studies, art education, and public health from the UMass School of Education. These cuts were, of course, part of the corporate takeover of the American university system. The Future Studies program allowed students to design their own field of study. I devised a curriculum centered on the important relationship between art and utopia. The idea of utopia extends art to architecture. I ask questions such as, what is a good society? What does it look like? What should be the relationship between art, nature, and technology? During graduate school, in pursuit of answers to these questions, I came across the drawings of architect Paolo Soleri's prototype arcology called Arcosanti. After I graduated, I moved to Arcosanti to be part of the group that was building a car-free walkable city as an antidote to existing urban design. However, I wasn't able to make a long-term commitment to the project because of what I saw as flaws in the project's authoritarian structure. This lack of democracy was, in turn, keeping Arcosanti from increasing its numbers from 200 people to its goal of 5,000 residents. I've presented my Newtopian, my neologism, meaning a new good place, ideas at several EcoCity summits. The last one I attended was in Abu Dhabi, UAE. During this summit, participants were able to tour Masdar, an experimental zero-carbon city partially funded by MIT.
Hey, Jamin, do you know about that experiment?
No, I don't.
Well, yeah, I thought maybe since you went to MIT, you might have come across it. But yeah, it's a very interesting example of a zero carbon city. But it's right on the edge of sprawl. And the UAE is just the, like, you know, huge city designs that are fossil fuel based.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, just a very tiny city that is something else. I mean, it's not even a city, really. Just a real prototype.
Yeah. Wow. Whoa, that'd be worth exploring, and we can look at images of it. So prototypes such as Masdar, Arcosanti, Biosphere 2 at the University of Arizona, and Jacques Fresco's Venus project all represent a new archetype in architecture. Such models fuse the two basic architectural archetypes: the trilithon, monumental or symbolic architecture, and the, I don't know how to pronounce that, edicule, the primate hut for living, into one holistic structure, designing cities as one would design a colony in outer space. All the various components of the city, its water systems, electrical systems, communication systems, and agricultural systems, can be integrated into one holistic order that uses biomimicry to design human habitats based on natural constructions. The urban experiments noted above provide an evolutionary ground for the emergence of a Type 1 civilization with planetary management of a network of arcologies, as outlined on the Kardashev scale. Failing to design within the constraints of nature, human arrogance and hubris has allowed our current Type O civilization, with its infantile narcissistic culture, to threaten all life on Earth. As you know, corporate America, with its growth economy, pretends there are no limits to growth. Presently, civilization is developing like immortal and rogue cancer cells that are unable to follow the commands of the body's innate self-regulating healing processes. And humanity functions more like a dangerous parasite than a co-creative partner of planet Earth. Archetypes in architecture change slowly and are directly linked with the environment. It appears that climate change is once again the evolutionary driver that is forcing humanity to move us into a different and more advanced type of civilization. As the climate becomes more hostile to life forms, our ecologies that can shelter us from inhospitable environments are critical to our survival. This time, importantly, the agricultural revolution must turn away from utilizing outdoor farmland to creating indoor climate-controlled farming. I respect your message and presentations very much. I see you are a truth seeker who has the courage to alert the public about our rapidly approaching extinction. However, I do not think that pursuing love and excellence or even social anarchy are thorough enough to be real solutions to this crisis. In my view, a futuristic analysis such as your own requires futuristic solutions. The world needs to try another urban experiment like Arcosanti, but this time on a much larger scale. Perhaps 1 million people who wish to be pioneers in a new way of living, the zero-carbon lifestyle. This is not a movement seeking to go back in time to the pre-industrial lifestyle of primitive family structures. Rather, it calls on us to choose as our prototype city an ecologically sound collective container. Our ecologies have the potential to move us through what astronomers searching for intelligent life call the Great Filter Theory, which posits a continuum of progress in evolved intelligent life. It provides a cosmic test of intelligence and love to see if we have the knowledge to design the city in accordance with the laws of the universe. I believe that moving in this direction is both necessary and urgent because we are in a race to re-shelter humanity in order to withstand abrupt climate change. Using automation, robotics, and 3D printing, we could find a way to manufacture new blueprints, both for social architecture to be based on social justice and for holistically designed physical architecture, creating a type 1 planetary civilization that can quickly and effectively eradicate poverty. Since there are no large-scale ecological cities in existence today, it is up to us to manifest a radical plan of action. If the climate scientists' projected demographic trends continue, in the near future there will be millions of climate war refugees who will need to be housed. Indeed, in 2015, 1 in every 113 people on the planet. To do so sustainably will present a golden opportunity and a laboratory for progress in sustainable city design. So here is the crux of why I am writing to you. At the end of your Missouri lecture, you talked about an upcoming meeting with an influential and wealthy man involved in computers, someone looking for practical solutions. Well, at this point, you have probably already met this person. Would you be open to working with me to present this urban project to him? In turn, I would like to better understand any solutions you have currently come up with that I have not mentioned here. I hope that my ideas presented here inspire you to get in touch with me. And who knows, perhaps we need only 1 billionaire to get the project to save humanity going. Sincerely yours, Dr. Snootopia. All righty. That is so well written. You know, normally at this point, I would start asking questions. But given how well written that document was, at this point, I would like to ask you to just tell us more. I mean, that's a great foundation. I'm happy to go back to screen share and zoom in on certain portions, but I would love for you to just take the mic and go for it at this point.
Yeah, well, you know, you mentioned that earlier in our conversation that you don't believe in private property, that you are for the collective, that sharing resources is fundamental to the way that you think. And I agree with you. I think that's the only way that we're going to be able to build this kind of sustainable shelter and do it quick enough to be able to save humanity from a very dangerous storms and climate change. And what my dissertation looked at was these archetypes in architecture. So you have the symbolic symbolism of architecture, like Stonehenge. Architecture is very connected with spirituality and creating myths. And I think that what we're looking for now is the new story, the new mythology, the myth makers who bring about this new civilization type. It's a radical change from the way that we live now. Like recently, I've been searching for a house to live in. The one I live in, you know, I don't relate to my neighbors. I want to live without a lot of noise. I have a lot of dog barking in my neighborhood, and I'm just tired of it. So I'm looking for a new house. And what I'm coming up with, the neighborhoods are not sustainable. The houses, I need a car in order to get around to the grocery store. This is not a zero carbon lifestyle. So I am stuck with having to buy into a housing situation that isn't really against my principles. And that's what hurts so bad, that I'm not going to be around like-minded people all working towards the new civilization type. I'm having to buy into the car culture, which I know uses fossil fuel. And even with an electric car, it's still a vehicle that kills people. And right now, a lot of the electricity is coming through coal or nuclear power. So it doesn't really seem to be a solution. And then these houses are built for nuclear families. Well, I am not part of a nuclear family. You know, so the structure doesn't fit me at all. And a lot of baby boomers are living single lives. And now as we're approaching, you know, our latter years, the civilization really doesn't serve us at all. And we get isolated and alienated. So to buy into the housing market right now, I'm just going to isolate myself. It's not the solution for the future. And for many people, it's an economic slavery. They're having to put all their money into this old paradigm in order to have a roof over their head. And it's actually creating climate change.
Absolutely.
So our whole housing market is wrong. And the car culture is wrong. You know, it's just not going to ever serve humanity. It's not going to give the children a future. And it doesn't create a good kind of community. It doesn't create this colony that we need in order to come together to save the human species.
Totally, totally. You know, what you've been talking about is something I've been dreaming of doing in you know, very much the same, I mean, the same basic form. And that is, I've made several trips up to Orcas Island in the San Juan Islands. And I think Orcas Island would actually be a really great place to build such a, you know, a city of the future, a community like that. Because what you've just articulated is really beautiful, because it describes me, it describes you, it describes so many single people who are living these isolated lives and just watching our world die, when it would make so much more sense. It would be so much more enriching and meaningful and fun and constructive for a bunch of us, you know, a few thousand of us or whatever, to come together, build one of these cities of the future, and we all live together there, and our focus is co-creating the future, co-creating the, you know, this model city, which can then be replicated and evolved, and all this model economy, agriculture, etc. All the while, you know, preparing for abrupt climate change, but also working on creative solutions to prevent the kind of the scale of climate change that we're looking at. Your thoughts, Doctress?
Well, I was thinking about Jacques Fresco. He was an engineer and worked on this project called the Venus Project. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. He talks about a resource-based economy. He made these models, him and his partner, Roxine Meadows, on these a new city design, but it's a whole paradigm shift. In that resource-based economy, he's using some of the ideas of Buckminster Fuller's World Management Committee, because in that system, you have this supercomputer that people ask questions to, like, you know, what kind of material do we need to build the infrastructure of an arcology, you know, which is so much data that one person cannot possibly know that. So you need this supercomputer in order to, you know, manifest this vision. So how I see it is that, you know, the spy computers, the spy networks that they have with these supercomputers running all the data on all of our private lives and everything, well, somehow we need to overturn that intention for those computers that are spying on us now, and make that into the global brain, or the first phase of the global brain, because we need that computing power to be able to know how this transformation can happen. So,
totally.
You know, so the military resources that we're using right now on such things as these death weapons, and you know, in the future, RoboCops or whatever killing machines that they're devising next. Well, you know, to have our computer scientists reprogram them into building these kinds of cities.
Right. Well, actually, the supercomputer that you've referred to, that's what I believe that radical collective intelligence can perform the very same function as, except, you know, instead of being an artificial computer, it's a crossing or a mashup between human intelligence and artificial intelligence. And so, but by whatever means, I just wanted to throw that in more as a footnote. But your basic point is extremely well taken. That,
well, yeah, that's what Jacques Fresco. I have my disagreement with him. I got to interview him before his death. He just died, I don't know, 2 weeks ago or something like that, at 101. He was a fascinating human being. But he just thought that, you know, politics was not necessary if you have the supercomputer. And I disagreed with him, because I thought, no, you know, you need the human element as well. The humans need to know what kind of questions to ask. You know, we don't want to be run by the computer. You know, they're not going to be able to know what it's like to be a human. You know, I really think it is this crossover between the artificial intelligence and the human intelligence.
Totally. That's exactly the idea, is that this marriage between the two, rather than seeing them as competing in either or, Let's just bring the two together. And that's, by the way, that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're using technology in order to bring ourselves together and then make this very contribution, this recording, this video, this very contribution to the collective memory and therefore the collective intelligence. So we are actually making contributions to the supercomputer by the second. Mark my words. By the second, we are making contributions to the supercomputer. And the more intentional these contributions become and the more organized, the more the more evolved this Cambrian explosion of collective intelligence will become. And that's where technology and the supercomputer functions and politics all come together. Because if you want to know what people's opinion is on something, you simply post the question. And, everyone will have their, smart device or smart glasses or whatever, or, maybe it'll be more like a shared computer resource at the center of this, 1,000-person community where, there's maybe 10 or 20 computers or something that anyone from the community can use when they need to in a shared capacity. And I'll just mention anecdotally that was my life for a few years, was actually building and operating computer centers in Mexico, of all places, educational computer centers. And that's how I met President Vicente Fox originally. He came to inaugurate Shively International's 25th educational computer center in the state of Sinaloa, Western Mexico. But anyway, but regardless of whether via devices or computer centers or whatever, you query the public and you say, what do you want? And or what do you think? And questions can be generated from all sources at all times so that we have a form of true democracy. And so, in fact, as part of collective intelligence, we've envisioned a system which we just use the code name Voice and Vote, where anyone in the community can voice their opinion on any topic and put any question to vote. Now, not everyone's going to vote on everything, right? And it kind of depends on who's putting it to vote. I mean, if Doctress Newtopia were to put something to vote, I would kind of like follow her and make sure I at least read everything she's submitting to vote, if not vote on everything. Ditto for Noam Chomsky and a whole bunch of other folks. So, but that's that's just kind of one big idea as to how politics and the supercomputer and humanity and everything can all intersect in one giant radical collective intelligence whose mission is a whole world, a world that's whole, a world that's healthy, a world that's complete, that's regenerative, that's self-healing and nurturing. And so I think we're very much talking the same language, Doctress.
Yes, it's a pleasure to meet somebody when it happens, like-mindedness. I just almost makes me speechless.
Well, I mean, I was pretty speechless when I read your document the first time. And I was like, woo! See, because I've had this experience that over the past several months, the lily pads are connecting, right? And, I reached out to Guy McPherson just as you did, kind of out of the blue. Neither of us knew him before. And now you and I are connected through Guy McPherson, right? How cool is that? So the lily pads are connecting, and he is a major hub, and there are other major hubs that we're now bringing into contact with each other. And
one book I read it many years ago, can't remember what it was, but it was saying that the utopian and the ecologist have to work together. And this is what is a proposal I gave to Guy, saying, okay, you are the dystopian here. This is the ultimate dystopia. And the solution has got to be as radical as the problem. And so that's why they need to work together. Because what we have now, our present civilization, is a dystopia. It's worse for some people who are in US prisons, or people who are at the low economic realm of society and have to slave in jobs that they hate, you know, they are on the bottom rung. They're the ones that are experience the most dystopian lifestyle. And certainly the people in the third world who are already experiencing their effects of climate change. Their agriculture is failing, these failed states. I mean, that's the, you know, that they're on a hell realm.
Totally.
So, you know, that's what we've got to uplift. And any solution that we come up with needs to work for every single person.
Absolutely.
Because if we don't, then there's just going to be class warfare. And that's what we've been experiencing the last 5,000 years. On and on with these wars, draining our resources, killing people, and of course now killing the whole habitat that we need to survive.
Totally. Totally. Wow. Yeah, no, what you're saying is so spot on, Doctress. You know, we've been since you mentioned the solutions that have to work for everyone, I'd like to just share with you a couple solutions that we've been working on, that the collective intelligence that we've been co-creating and nurturing along, you know, in whatever simple form. And it's been evolving quickly. But this is the best that our current collective intelligence has come up with. We've come up with an economic engine called the compassionate economy, with a new standard of certified compassionate companies that donate 100% of their profits to eradicating hunger, as long as there is any hunger in the world. And then, you know, thereafter, the surplus funds would be dedicated toward other goals. That the organization must be socially transformational in everything that it does, and ecologically regenerative in everything that it does. And so the idea is, by dedicating all profits to ending hunger, we would fund such institutions as the community cafes, which I co-created with several partners, including the leader of the community cafes, my brother Eric Miller, pictured here in the middle, and Crystal and Rodriguez, and many others. Here are a bunch of volunteers as well. And we fed the entire community of Rosamond, California, out in the Mojave Desert, on their annual Parade of Lights, as just a prototype of the whole concept of a community cafe, which is making food a basic human right, and not any kind of food, but food that is raised in regenerative agriculture settings, such as what you've described in your cities of the future, etc. And then this plays into a global movement called the Hungerless Games, where funds from certified compassionate companies go to end hunger via community cafes and other programs. That this gets covered by the media, because, for example, we would do, you know, amazing projects, like we'd go to Haiti and we would just put community cafes all over Haiti and just end hunger in Haiti, period. Gone forever. And of course that would get massive media coverage, that we've eradicated hunger in this desperately poor country, and look at all the changes. And of course that coverage would make CCC products and services all the more popular, sending even more profits, and thus a virtuous cycle. So, and the very first CCC company is Sato Hemp of Japan, a hemp fashion house based in, run by the Sato family. Takuya Sato is like 12th generation or something crazy like that, you know, where they passed on the skills from father to son, without skipping a single generation. And so Takuya Sato, being the longest legacy of hemp in the world, he is the Hemperor of Japan.
I like that.
Yeah, and we're filming for a documentary television series called The Hemperor's New Clothes, because this is all about this massive paradigm shift, right? That's going to lead us to end world hunger, regenerative agriculture, and ultimately a new level of thinking. consider Einstein's quote, we cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them. We need a new level of thinking. We need that supercomputer that Jacques Fresco talked about, except we're taking it to the next level by adding human intelligence to the computer and creating radical collective intelligence. And so, you know, the basic idea, just like you line up batteries to make the light bulb brighter, by putting our heads together. So here I am with the Hemperor and other members of Sato Hemp. And so this was a Radish meets Sato Hemp, you know, retreat that we did in Japan back in 2015, where we're putting these concepts of putting our heads together and also putting together different perspectives from, you know, perspectives from Japan and Japanese culture, from American culture, Spanish culture, and so many cultures from within the United States. So we've been pioneering this collective intelligence. My friend Nathan Myhrvold, former chief technology officer at Microsoft, says that perspective is worth 30 IQ points. Well, he's talking about the perspective within a single cranium, right? From, you know, different experiences and all that. What we're talking about is the perspective of bringing multiple people together from all over the world to address any given challenge. And look, if expanded perspective within a single cranium is worth 30 IQ points, what's the total bump in IQ from bringing all these people together? It's virtually limitless, especially when you combine it with artificial intelligence, augmented reality, which is just like being there, even better. Combine it with other technologies such as teleological taxonomies, which we apply to the telos of a whole world. What does our world need to be whole? Well, let's break it down. Let's root down. This is where we start to develop the teleological taxonomy. Never taking our eye off of that telos of a whole world. We break it down into wholeness for people and wholeness for the planet. Well, what does it take for people to be whole? Well, they've got all these physical needs and then these higher level needs. And well, what does it mean for the planet to be whole? Well, the air needs to be whole, the water, the land, the ecosystems, the species, all the life supporting systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we continue to root down until we get down to finally to the leaf nodes. There'd be millions of these, by the way. These are just some random examples. But now we've got like a full matrix of what are all the things that we need to complete and make whole in order to have a whole world. And we also use, so that's one way that we use teleological taxonomies. We also use taxonomies in connecting and relating the various different problems in the world to have a more holistic view. And we apply collective intelligence most notably to come up with solutions, whether it's carbon sequestration artificially, carbon sequestration naturally, via regenerative agriculture networks, whether it's transforming modes of transportation, modes of energy production, et cetera, et cetera. But now let's focus for a minute on the platform of collective intelligence itself. Let's say that's represented by this blue box. This is, you know, the platform, the technological platform. And that platform supports a certain amount of actual collective intelligence that can grow and evolve on top of it. But theoretically, that will be limited by the platform itself. So what is one of the functions of the collective intelligence? To architect, design, and build the next generation platform of collective intelligence, which will then be able to support an even bigger, an even higher form of collective intelligence, which can then be used, among other things, to design, build the next great platform of collective intelligence. And you can see where this is going. Exponentially growing collective intelligence gives us a real contender in the cosmic game of chicken with abrupt climate change, right? Mm-hmm. You know, abrupt climate change, meet abrupt collective intelligence, and let's build a whole world, a world that's complete, that's healthy, that can live instead of die. Anyway, I just wanted to share this is some of the stuff that collective intelligence has come up with. And, you know, coming up with whole new economic standards, whole new companies, whole new industries, whole new platforms. I mean, the potential is absolutely unlimited. And when you marry it with your vision of a city of the future where we come together rather than being in our own isolated prisons, right? Where you're in house arrest and you've got barking dogs surrounding your prison cell in Tucson, and you're also forced to burn all kinds of carbon just to maintain your lifestyle, just to live, and have some form of social life and professional life. And so if we marry these two and we build this community of the future, whether it's on Orcas Island or in the desert or in Belize, Guy and Pauline have gotten a good start with their, community down there and their little utopian community in Belize. Wherever it is, let's do it. Let's do it now. And let's co-create this collective intelligence. Let's co-create the technological platform. Let's co-create the communities. Let's co-create the culture. All of this is beckoning for a new culture for humanity, right? And culture, after all, is derived from the very circumstances of life. If you're born in Alaska in the year 400, well, your culture is given by the seasons and the whales and the fishing and the need to make igloos and the need that we need to really be together and live communally in order to stay warm, in order to survive, right? Versus if you're, born in the Basque country of Spain, as many of my ancestors are from, 2,000 years ago, well, to live, you need to be able to kind of be more isolated and independent so that you can take your sheep or your animals and herd them here and there and everywhere and survive that way, right? So it was less communal for them by nature. Our present circumstances are calling forth a communal culture, a culture of healing ourselves, healing the planet, right? Healing ourselves through coming together. We're social creatures after all. We're meant to be together. We're not meant to be so isolated and screwed up. So healing ourselves, and most importantly, healing the planet, which the destruction of which has made it absolutely top priority. If the planet weren't so devastated, it might not even be on our radar at all as something that we need to heal. If this were, 15,000 years ago and we hadn't gone the direction of the agricultural revolution, right? There might be much more social problems that we need to solve rather than the ecological ones we have today. But the current crisis is ecological, and we're destroying our habitat, and it's almost gone. So it's urgent that we come together.
It's also social as well, because since my lifetime, since 1945, we've been living with the threat of nuclear annihilation. So it's that could happen at any moment. And just a nuclear disaster with these nuclear weapons. So it's kind of both. It's the social and the ecological have to be solved together. It's an equally devastating problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the new narrative, the new story for humanity is emerging, and it's very simple. We were hunter-gatherers living very much in harmony with nature. And then as we developed tools and as the climate kind of magically stabilized for a while, people figured out that agriculture works. And that led to a new culture of fencing in and dividing and separating land from the rest of nature, right? And monoculture and all these things, which at first just seemed like godsends because, wow, we can grow a bunch of grain and store it. What a great idea. But as Guy McPherson has pointed out, wherever grain has been introduced, ultimately civilization is destroyed. Humanity is destroyed. Peoples are destroyed. But now that genie is out of the bottle and we're so dependent on grain, at least temporarily for the time being, we need to contend with that reality. And but the story of humanity is, for whatever reasons, we went the path of agriculture. It ended up almost destroying us. But just before it had destroyed us, a bunch of us got together and said, hey, we can summarize the last 45 minutes of our conversation, basically, including your great document that kicked us off. We can do something different. Let's do it. We did it. They did it. There was still catastrophic climate change, and X% of humanity was wiped out. the survivors developed and evolved these new models, this new culture, this new way of being. And in the heartbreak of all the devastation that was happening all around us, we chose to forge on and to preserve life on Earth, to preserve our own species and to preserve as many other species as we possibly could through our actions. And out of all this evolved a new culture, a culture of compassion, of sharing, of caring, of healing, of nurturing. A culture of gardeners rather than extractors, and where the unity that was required for humanity to survive not only created a new culture, but actually brought us together into a new organism. And just as with the leafcutter ant species, the fundamental organism, the fundamental unit that can live is not a single ant. That's about as much of an organism as my finger. It's the entire colony with all the different functions working together as my finger works with my stomach and my heart and my lungs. And wow, this big machine actually works. So likewise, humanity came together where the fundamental unit was no longer the individual with their individual cranium and their individual ego, but the fundamental unit became humanity itself. And so we evolved into a new organism, and the new Cambrian explosion became exactly that, going from a bunch of individual unicranial beings to a multi-cranium collective intelligence. And that's utopia, and that's nirvana, that's rapture, because we're finally all together, right? It'll be like making love with 100 million people at once. What could be better than that? Because we'll all be so deeply connected and sharing our thoughts and our ideas through a combination of information and communication technologies, as well as good old-fashioned people just coming together at the town square and saying, hey, great to see you, let's hang, right? Let's talk.
Yeah,
right?
I even came up with a word for what you're expressing, and it's Massgasm.
I love it. Massgasm.
Yeah,
Massgasm. I love it.
So once we feed the world, there's no more hunger, that weight is lifted off. That's a Massgasm.
What a Massgasm. Oh my, exactly. I have been beating off waiting for that Massgasm for decades.
Well, a lot of us have.
Wait. Pardon me?
A lot of us have. Hey, well, that's it. We all feel that bliss, that ecstasy together, by solving these problems. That's what the true lovemaking is at this point.
Totally. And that's why I love doing what I do. I love jumping on and doing these videos where we come together and we share, and we find out how rich it is when we mix our perspectives together. This is part of the Massgasm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, let's get it on. Let's keep getting it on. Okay. Right. And let's invite others to the Massgasm. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah, because there's an exchange of energy and it feels good.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And look, making love, even in the traditional form, what is it if not communication? You're communicating, except instead of communicating with your words, you're communicating with your, whatevers, right? It's communication. You're saying I love you, but in different ways. You're saying I feel you. I relate with you. I empathize. I want to be with you. All that. That's what we're communicating.
Well, the futurist Barbara Marx Hubbard calls it bringing together your genius codes. So that's what we're really trying to do, is all the genius that is out there now, and there's a lot of it, to organize it, to bring it in together so that we have more power than the old system.
Totally. Absolutely. Because see, what could possibly be more powerful here on planet Earth in this moment than a massively higher form of intelligence that is orders of magnitude more intelligent than all of the king's army, all of the king's men in Washington, D.C. Oh my goodness. We're going to blow them out of the water. Right now, they are a collective intelligence. Make no mistake.
Yeah.
George W. Bush would say, make no mistake about it. They are a collective intelligence, but we're going to blow them away.
Well, they don't have any solutions.
They don't. All they're doing is circling the wagons and defending the existing paradigm to the point that they're just the laughing stock of planet Earth. Give me a break, right? Climate change deniers. I mean, that's like a gravity denier. Once we've all jumped out of the airplane with our parachutes, and there's one of us who's a gravity denier and refuses to pull his chute and just says, "Oh, this gravity's a hoax," right? So, I mean, but that it's tragic. It's absolutely tragic. But the cool thing is, see, just look, this very hangout is giving me so much hope and inspiration, because look at what happens when we come together and mix our perspectives, mix our paradigms, right? It's just like, wow. And I got to tell you, since you know, we're just getting started here, so. We would have all these really cool, you know, one-on-one interactions. But then we found when we brought 3 of us together, it was just poof, a dimensional enhancement, right? Because, you know, here we are, we're kind of lobbing it back and forth, and I'm me and you're you, and it's, you know, but you know, bring in a third, and it literally is a dimensional enhancement. It's like going from 2D to 3D.
Yeah, well, that's a spiritual revolution, or what I call love-evolution.
Love-olution, I love it. A love-olution.
And that's a worldwide transformation to build a network of arcologies.
Wow.
It's the evolution of revolution. We don't need any more revolutions. They don't work. You know, they cause too much bloodshed and ideological clashes. And so really what we need is like what you showed me on that slideshow, that you're coming from a holistic perspective.
Yes.
You know, a globalism that is really humane and has compassion. I've heard it called the caring economy.
Yep. Yeah, we call it that too. Yeah. We call it that.
You know, so I mean, that is so much what people want rather than a slave economy.
Well, you see, what's happening though is people are waking up en masse right now. People are waking up. And I believe that is going to drive tremendous demand for CCC products and services, tremendous innovation, right? From, you know, including but not limited to all the cool stuff that you've been mentioning, right? Both in writing and in speaking. Bring all those innovations to building materials, to clothing, to food, to transportation, right? And, you know, imagine a compassionate Uber, you know, that donates 100% of its, I mean, who is not going to want to ride in the compassionate Uber, right? Where, you know, instead of being new cars, Uber demands that all the cars be new, right? Or maximum a few years old. You know, in our case, hey, no, we're reviving old beaters and running them on biofuels and whatever. I'm just giving examples. Or, you know, bicycles that carry a bunch of people and everybody pedals, right? Why the heck not? And so there's so many new models to be built. And you see, that way we can incrementally and organically transform the global economy, because everyone's going to want to be buying CCC. If it's CCC, buy it. If it's not CCC, boycott it. It's that simple. Black and white bifurcation. We bifurcate the global economy into the compassionate economy versus everyone else. Well, over time, everyone else is going to start to look like, you know, the people who got body snatched, because that's effectively what happened. We all kind of got body snatched. And now a bunch of us are waking up and co-creating this new reality. And what we're seeing is this new reality encompasses a whole new mode of production of the global economy, going from an economy of hoarding to an economy of sharing. A compassionate economy, a caring economy. That's a transformation. That's a complete transformation. And so just like you can think your way into a new mode of action, you can also act your way into a new mode of thinking. And that's largely what the compassionate economy is about. And the Hungerless games, you know, the strategy, the Hungerless games, the story, the meme.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, you know, because I love a bunch of the cool, you know, language that you've come up with. So much of it is language. As we're creating a new culture and whole new cultural constructs and paradigms, we need new words like Massgasm and Love-olution, right? To encompass them, to begin to put, you know, a container around them, not to contain them, but simply to identify them in language. So we're going to be coming up with lots of cool stuff. So we're constantly bubbling up these cool ideas and new language for them. The Emperor's new clothes. What? You know, I mean, look at all that is encompassed in that. They are new clothes. They're made of hemp, and it's paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's new poetry.
New poetry. New poetry. It's new. Exactly. And this all goes into the new narrative, the new story for humanity.
Yeah, I think it's an epic poem. We really get into the epic and music and the arts. You know, it's a renaissance.
Yeah.
Because the arts are so suppressed right now. You know, they have been for so many years, you know, thousands of years, that we have not let the arts free. And everybody is an artist. You know, that concept it needs to happen, because that's what allows us to be human and not a robot.
Totally. And that's, you know, these are like an art becomes part of the new sex organs of the Massgasm, because it's through our artistic contribution. This is an artistic contribution, right? We're getting together, and it's like a song, like a dance, but it's a new thing. What do we call it? Well, we call it a radcast. At least that's the placeholder name for it. But really, these artistic creations are that's our contributions to the Massgasm, right? And when people get to watch this and say, "Oh my God, that's so cool," right? That's them participating in the Massgasm, right? That's them piling on, right? And piling on with their own contributions and their own ideas and saying, "Yes, and have you thought about this?" Or let's talk about that.
Well, I hope we in the future can continue this conversation. And, I want to be able to also, I have some PowerPoint shows that I'd like to show you about, I call it the democracy meritocracy form of governance education. Because I think that, we do need a container in order for these ideas to be able to manifest.
Totally. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Well, I am so excited to be on this journey with you, in this conversation with you. And I really think a lot of other people are going to be inspired and are going to join, and we can invite people to join. I can't wait to get a bunch of my colleagues on this. And, wow. And I encourage you to invite anyone you'd like to invite. And the cool thing is, we don't have to spend you don't have to, burn a bunch of carbon flying from place to place or driving from place to place to do it.
Yeah, no, this is the way to do it. I mean, this is the way. I mean, burning this carbon is it's getting us nowhere.
Yep. So we're creating the beginnings of the city of the future right here through this medium, right? This is the beginning, because all this will be stored under one common umbrella, made easy to search, navigate, and boop, and it's kind of like you can just, it's like living in this super cool community where you can just walk into any room at any time and have any conversation you want, experience any part of the Massgasm you want at any time.
And these ideas, I mean, many people are interested in the sustainability model. I was going to go to a conference in Australia if I had gotten a place to speak there, but they gave me a poster session. I didn't think it was right just to go to Australia for that, and it was going to be a digital poster. So why do I need to go to Australia for that? But anyway, Al Gore is the main speaker there, and it's called the EcoCity Summit. And that's happening, I think, next month, where I don't know if you know the work of Richard Register.
No.
He wrote a book called EcoCity Berkeley. He's written another one called EcoCities, and he is one of the founders of this summit. He has a lot of good ideas. He's one of the friends of Michael Gosney.
Super
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, and you know, so a lot of people. I mean, this it's just making this idea gel. You know, becoming the nucleus of it.
Totally, exactly. That's it. The place simply needed a nucleus. Once the nucleus is formed and we plant the flag, however imperfectly,
Yeah.
right? One of the law number one of the laws of marketing, which I take very, very seriously, and actually have been the basis for much of my success in the marketplace, in the private sector. Law number one is it's better to be first than it is to be better. And it's counterintuitive, flies in the face of everything we've ever been taught, which is take your time and do it right, right? Law number one says do the opposite. It says do it now. Do it now. And that, in terms of becoming that nucleus that then grows and grows and grows and becomes, you know, and remains the nucleus, and it just, and outside of it, it grows concentrically or however, organically, fractally, whatever your metaphor. But we actually have that opportunity to right now to co-create that nucleus. And the only reason I say that is not because we're so great, but simply because it doesn't yet exist. Period. It doesn't exist in a holistic way.
Well, I tell you, that EcoCity Summit, I looked at the speakers, I looked at the presentations, and I went, I don't even like, you know, it's nothing like what you're talking about.
No, here we're actually we're building the beginnings of the EcoCity, which is the virtual layer, and then that virtual layer will encompass the entire planet. And then, you know, wherever we want to instantiate an EcoCity that's by default connected to the virtual layer, it will have the support of this thriving planetary virtual community. And if for the moment you're in Tucson and I'm in Seattle, so be it, right? You know, I'm sure eventually we'll both move to, you know, eco-cities of the future around the planet, maybe to the same one, maybe to different ones, but regardless, we'll stay connected, right? And that's the beautiful thing. So really the foundation of this city of the future, rather than being a massive slab of concrete, is actually a troposphere, a troposphere of bits, of zeros and ones. It is, you know, the ICT layer, but of course the stuff is our human contributions to it.
Very good.
Wow, so exciting! My goodness. Well, we're just getting started here. I know we've been at this for a while now, and that's awesome. Maybe it'd be a good time to take a little break, and you know, before our next episode of this amazing Radcast.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd love to call this Radcast the Massgasm. Pile on, you know. Let our slogan be pile on.
Okay.
Right? And let's use some really evocative imagery of, you know, like a bunch of people all, you know, kind of, you know, I probably don't need to say more, but a bunch of people, you know, but some imagery that suggests that in an artistic way, not in an offensive way or a way that wouldn't be appropriate for kids to see, but something that, you know, if you're someone who's our age and is at least partially awake, you'll say, got it, right? Mm-hmm. Wow, these guys are, okay, all right, play. And then they start playing and it's just like, whoa, okay, I got it. This is the dog whistle. This is the dog whistle, Doctress, to our people that have been lost and wandering in the desert aimlessly alone. This is the dog whistle that says, you know, come under the North Star. We'll meet you there. This is it. Welcome to the Massgasm.
Yeah.
This is Massgasmic. This is Massgasmic. And it's Levolutionary.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. All right. Doctress, I just want to thank you. Anything else you want to say or talk about before we...
I think, you know, I'm going to just reflect on everything that we exchanged. And, yeah, I hope to see you again.
Well, it's like after the first Massgasm, all I want to do is light a cigarette and just kind of crash out on the sofa for a while. So, and reflect. I'm just playing off of it. This is so cool. This is the Massgasm. And who wouldn't want to be a part of it?
I don't know.
But you know what? Anyone who wouldn't want to be a part of it, I'm not sure I'd want them in the Massgasm.
Well, it's contagious. That's the
It is
thing.
contagious.
You know, with this kind of charisma, it's contagious and people want to be near it.
I love
They
it.
want to have it, not be near it. They want it inside, because that's how you tune into it, is by connecting with your own inner self.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you get the reintegration of the individual, because the individual that's just been starving and dying of thirst, metaphorically, once it finally gets the water and the nutrients in, it's like, wow, now I get to be the individual who I always wanted to be, as opposed to this shriveled up, suffering, contorted, whatever.
Because right now, people don't have a place to use their gift. There's nowhere to give it. There's no structure that allows people to even be educated on who they really are. It's that deadening what is happening. It's just a complete anti-Renaissance.
Totally, exactly. And it's gotten to such a fever pitch of destruction and isolation and separation that it's just, out of it is just popping the polar opposite, which is yet another law of marketing, that you actually have to do the opposite of the dominant paradigm if you want to really create something world changing, which is what we're doing here, of course. So it's like, this Massgasm is going to come as such a breath of fresh air to humanity, and really ultimately the planet. How could it not? It's let's extend the Massgasm to Gaia, to Mother Earth itself, and all of our brother and sister species and ecosystems and life supporting systems, and even stuff that was previously considered to be dead. Let's Massgasm it all. All right, wonderful. Well, it's been a wonderful Massgasm.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. And we're just getting started. Oh my goodness, what fun!
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, I can't wait for the next one. And let's, in the meantime, we'll brainstorm, who else to invite and how to. But I mean, this is just going to take off on its own. Let's not kid ourselves. So. All right. What a privilege. What a privilege. All right. I'm going to stop recording now. You don't need to hang up, but I'll stop recording. Okay. I just want to thank you once again, Dr. Snutopia, and I give you the last word.
Thank you very much. You never know when miracles are going to happen, and we give each other miracles.
Absolutely. We're co-creating miracles.
Yeah, that's it. And that's what it really is these the space in between us.
Yeah.
That we're vibrating.
Yeah. And now we give it away to the world as a contribution. Help yourselves.
Yeah, so thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Snutopia. Look forward to the next one.
Okay.
Bye for now.